Um, Good morning, everyone. I think we can get started with those who are here. The rest will be able to find us on their way. We can't wait for them indefinitely. So, if you can hear me, just acknowledge either by an emoji or something of the sort. Thanks, Jaylin. So, if you and thanks, Steve. If you can hear me, that is good. I think we can get straight into business and uh, try to understand exactly are going to cover today. So I'm just putting my note taker in, right? So yeah, I think my note taker is in, so you can start recording. Okay, I think it's recording. That's fine. Well, our agenda for today is going to continue from where we left last time. We had started looking at CSS. We discussed what CSS is. We discussed how we can integrate CSS into our application, either as inline style or as internal or external documents, and we saw how to achieve that. We also looked at the syntax of CSS. I believe we also looked at the various selectors. That is the simple selectors, the pseudo selectors, and the like. So we had quite some mileage yesterday. So Steve is asking if did I send the recording yesterday? Yes, I sent the recording to your respective class reps. Um, I could also share it in this chat once we are done, but I shared it to the class rep, so I want to believe that you should be able to have accessed it. So today we want to look at one more thing as far as selectors are concerned. Then we will start looking at other parts of CSS that are very important. Remember, I said I want us to not to take more than uh, 3 or 4 classes on CSS so that you can now start focusing on JavaScript, which is the core of this particular course. JavaScript is what makes it a little bit interesting. These things that you are doing are for purposes of creating user interfaces. So, moving straight, I want us to start looking at what we call attribute selector. So, I will share my screen. Um, I will switch like that. I think that's better. Um, all right. I hope you can be able to see my screen. Just you can just acknowledge if you can be able to see my screen. Okay, thank you, Steve. You can see it. That's awesome. So let's move straight to business. So yesterday we stopped at pseudo selectors. So today I want us to look at what we call attribute selectors. So I'll create a new file and I'll call it CSS3. I'll call it attribute selectors.html. So with these attribute selectors, what essentially they help us in doing is enabling us to select elements based on their attributes. Remember, we said images have attributes like a hyperlink reference, they have a width, they have a height, and so forth and so forth. When you're talking about a form, we have inputs of different types, and all these kinds of stuff. So when you're talking about these attributes, then we are saying that we want to be able to select these attributes. We want to select these elements based on the attributes that they possess. Because when you're talking about styling, we want to be able to target elements as with the highest precision possible. So that's why the attribute selectors are important. So I'll start with emits, and I'll say here attribute selectors like that. So when it comes to attributes, there are different ways within which we can select our attributes. I can see Visual Studio Code is really trying so hard to um, fill it in for me, which I could use that. Let me see what that brings. It was not mine, but again, it has already put the text for me. So let me see how that works out. So I'll start this server over here. Yeah, so we have something like this. And it tries to explain what these attribute selectors do. So they allow you to select elements based on their attributes, as I've said, and values. So, for example, I have an element with an attribute. Well, here I don't have elements with attributes, but down here I have elements with certain attributes. Like this anchor has a hyperlink reference attribute. It also has a title, right? And the title is called example link. So, for example, if I wanted to target this element, and I want to change this text, maybe the color of this text of the background based on the attribute title, probably what I would do is to target this element based on its attribute. So what I would do here is something like this. And as it is saying, if you the attribute is usually put in square brackets. Every time you want to target an element with an attribute, you'll have to use the square bracket. So I'll come up here and I'll put my style tag. Then on my style tag, I want to target this anchor, but I want to target the title like this. So what I'll do here, I'll simply say, get me an anchor element. Then I'll put a bracket. Then I'll say title. Then I'll say is equal to. Now, if I want exact item like here, it says example link as it is. Now, this is equal to means that it has to be precise. This means it has to be precise example link. So when I put equal to, it means that it has to be exactly as it is. But we know that in real life that doesn't work. So if you look at it, let me just make this one red so that it screams. So if I do that, you'll see that the example link, which is actually here, is actually now in red. So what I've done is I've taken an anchor, then I'm looking at a title attribute, and the title should be example link. That is precision. When I put equal, it means that it tests exactly as it is. Now, what if I wanted to just check it starts with example? It starts with example. Now, if I want to say it starts with example, what I would do here is I'll put the, I don't know what you call that, but the power symbol, and I'll say example, and maybe say make it purple so that we see if there's a difference. And as you can see, now it has become purple. So it means that if I put this power symbol, that is shift and key number 6, then it will check so long as it has example in it. So it could be example, even if I come here and say example link 3, then it will still be able to work because it starts with example, right? Now, what if I want it to end with what it ends with? So that is what it starts with. So starts with. The other one was is exactly. Let me just put it here. Is exactly. So is exactly was equal to sign. I'll copy that and paste it up here. So when I say is equal to example link, don't worry about the 3. So example link should be red. It won't be red because now I added 3 on the example, but if I remove the 3 and it becomes example link, well, it will still not be red because this will overwrite. So the next style that is below will overwrite the one at the top. So that's how CSS works. So if I was to remove the lower one by masking it, you'll see this becomes red. But of course, if I activate the lower one, it will make it red. Then again, going down, it will make it purple. So that's how the cascading will work out. So that starts with. How about if I wanted to end with? So if I wanted to end with, I could simply just paste the code over here. Then instead of this tiled, I'll put a dollar sign. So when I put a dollar sign, it means it ends with. So let me say it ends with 3. And maybe make this one, say, maroon. So I believe that if it finds it, it should be able to change the text to maroon. So title ends with, yeah, that should pick. Is that maroon? That's more like purple. Link is, oh, there's no 3 here. So now you can see the text is maroon, right? It's actually maroon right now. So if I wanted to end with, I do that. Now, if I wanted to contain, if I want an attribute contains, then I will use something like star. So star means it contains example. So this one, let me say I want it to be sky blue. So you can see now it is sky blue because the element actually has an attribute containing example. So it doesn't matter. I can say here test example, and you can see it will still be able to work because example is found as part of that text. So star means it contains, dollar sign means it ends with, the power means it starts with. Okay. Sometimes you also have contains the word, a word plus hyphen. So sometimes you might want to target something that contains a word with a hyphen. So for example, let me come here and say this image has an this image uh, has a has an index of sample image, something like that. Sample image. So what I can say, maybe I want to apply borders on this uh, based on this attribute. So what I'll do here, I'll say give me an image. Well, the alt is sample like that, but instead of using that tile, I could use that tile. Okay, maybe what I'll do is I don't this image I don't have, so let me put an image here. We have a folder called images, and inside images we have birds view. So let me just put an image so that now we can be able to have an image over there. So now if I put simple, it means that if I put the pipe symbol, this is the pipe symbol, then it will contain, it will look for anything that contains the word sample followed by a hyphen. So you can say I have sample hyphen image. So if I put this pipe symbol, it means it will look for sample, then followed by a hyphen, and it could be something else. It could be hyphen with another text or something of the sort. And as you can see, it has actually applied the background and has also put the border radius. So maybe say I can put it red so it is a bit conspicuous. So you can see it has actually applied that border around. All right. So this is actually good. So you can see how these attributes selectors come into play. So very, very important. It is you can put your anchor, you can put your ID, you can put your class. Then now you can put an attribute that you want to check. It can be a title, it can be a name, it can be really anything that you want to be able to use. Let me give you an example of how to use a name. Let's say, for example, I have an input down here, input, which is of type text, and it has an ID of an email address or email. Then I give it a name of email address, right? So if I wanted to format this so that it has some, maybe let me give it a thick border or maybe make it red just to be conspicuous because the whole point here is we are learning how to use attribute selector. So name here is attribute, ID here is attribute, and so forth and so forth. So if I wanted to target the input, which has a name, and the name is equals to, and again I can put equal to, as you can see over there. So when I do that, you can see that style is actually now applied. Okay, so you can see the border is 2 pixels solid. Actually, let me make it red because red is a bit conspicuous. So you can see now it has actually applied red. So I can put a placeholder so that you confirm it's the one. Email address. So you can see that's actually the one. So if I want to target anything, something by the name, I can put the selector, any other selector. Then now I can put the attribute selector inside my inside my selector. Then I can be able to now apply all the properties that I want to apply to it. Okay, so that's kind of like how attribute selectors work. They're very, very powerful because, as we have said, at the end of the day, they will help us to be able to pick elements based on some specific attributes. And this is important because, as you have mentioned, it could start with, it could be exactly, which is equal to sign. It could start with, it could contain, it could end with, it could, have start with this text followed by a hyphen and so forth and so forth. So all these things help us so much when it comes to selecting these components. All right. Now, again, as we're working with forms, and we're going to format form. Actually, let's create a form over here, and let's see how we can format it. So maybe I can just create here a form. So I'll simply say here, not something like that, but let me add a file here. What is it doing? Add a file here. Green section. Add a file. Call it forms.html. We already have forms, so style forms.html. Then emit. Then I can collapse this. So here I can simply come and say sign in form. So here I can put a form. Action is itself. I'm not concerned with the form elements. I'll just stop this, dispose this, then run it again so that our form displays here. That's what live server does. So from here I can say label username. Okay, that's not good. Label for username. Put your username, and I'll put here input text username. Then I can come here and say label for password. I'll put password. I'll put an input type of password with an ID of user password, user password. Then I can put here another input checkbox with an ID of remember me, right? So I'll put here remember me, and I'll simply put here uh, remember me. Now, because this is going to be a very small text, I can wrap it inside a label, remember me, and it's up for this. So it means that if I click on this, it will be able to still select it. So I might want to do the reverse, put the input, then I'll remove that. Again, I think we had learned all of these things and how they work out. So yeah, so I have that. Then I'll have now a button here. I'll have input, submit. Then I'll simply say sign in. This is an example of login form, and probably this is where maybe kind of styling will come into play. So when we are formatting these forms, maybe we want to format the inputs to have certain styles. So, and I can come here now, then I can now start applying my styles. Now, the whole point here is I want to use attribute selector so that it shows how it works out. So I'll simply say uh, anything that's an input, maybe, let's place at a block. So they'll appear from top to bottom, right? So maybe here I can, because I want these ones to be together, I can put a div Then I'll put these two inside that div because I want them to appear uh, next to each other, something like that. Then here, all the inputs as you can see are displaying block. Then I'll say I want a div. Then inside any div, I need to be very specific. I'll say this one is display inline. Actually, it's inline block. Well, I can say flex. Don't know why that's not working. It should actually work. Yeah, so now they're on one line. Now, of course, I have put them on top of one another. Then probably maybe the only other thing I might want to do, you can see there's a bit of margin here. So what we have something called universal selector, which I did not show us. If you put a star, it means that you want to select everything on the page. So star is universal selector. I think for some strange reason I forgot about that. Universal selector. So star is a universal selector usually, and we're going to discuss this today. So don't worry so much about that. So there are some reset styles that you need to put. So reset styles. Remember, we said each browser comes with its own input styles. So I want to be able to reset everything so that we start from the ground. So the things that I usually set are margin. I set them to 0. You can see now it has pushed everything to the left. As you can see, the browser was providing its own margin. Then we also have padding. I'm just using them for now. I'll explain what they are later on when you're looking at the CSS Box model. And then, of course, box sizing should be border box. Don't worry about that. These are styles that we apply globally just to reset the page. Then we can now be able to start applying our own styles. Okay, so from here now, maybe because this thing is not looking so good, I'll simply come and pick the body of the document. Then I can simply say margin is top and bottom is 0, left and right, I mean is auto. Um, that should center it vertically. Yeah, that should center everything automatically. Why is it not doing that? Yeah, that should allow me to. That should allow me to center it. Okay, I don't know what it's not doing, but nonetheless, let's just say that for the margin, we want to have maybe say top and bottom is 50 pixels. Let's just have actually 50 pixels all around so that we remove it from the edge of the page. So now we have this over here. Now we want to target these styles so that now probably we leave some spaces between them. So when I'm coming to an input, I can simply say margin bottom will be 20 pixels just to have a bit of space bottom, just to have a bit of space within the components. Now, I can now start styling my inputs because that was the agenda for this particular uh, example. So let me say I want this input and this input to have different styles. I want to change the colors and stuff like that. So I can come here and say input that is of type is equals to text. What do I want to do? Any input that is text, I want it to have a border of 1 pixel, solid gray. So you can see the outline has changed, and I want the outline to be removed. So I don't want this outline. So you can see now I don't have the outline. Okay, then probably maybe I can have a padding of 10 pixels, which means I want to leave out a bit of space from the edge so that now I can be able to type inside it nicely like that. So you see I'm targeting only an input that is of type text, something of the sort. Now, if I want an input of type password, I'll simply say here input that is of type equals password, and you can use all the other ones that we had used. Contains, is starts with, ends with, and all that. Again, this one I can give a padding of 5 pixels. I think 10 pixels is too much. Let me give it 5. Even here, 5 is not bad. Yeah, so 5 all round is not bad. Then that's 5. Then I can say color is blue. We're also going to discuss color and various values we can use. So when I come here and I start typing the password, you can see now the password is blue in color. If I wanted to format checkboxes, buttons, and all that, I am able now to do that. So this button, for example, has a value of sign in. So what I can do here, I could simply say, give me it's an input, and this input has a value which contains, so contains should be star is equals to, then I'll put I'll put the value is so this should be square brackets, not curly. Sorry, yeah, the value is equals to contains sign, so from there it will pick all the input that has a value of sign, and then that I'll simply say padding of 10 pixels. So you can see the padding is increased. I'll say width is 50 pixels. 50 pixels is small, so I'll simply say 100 or 70. Just make it wider. Then probably I can say background is green and maybe the color is white, like that. So you can see now I am able, and of course I can put the border is transparent so that the border does not appear. I don't like the blackish, something like that. So maybe I want to create the rounded corner, so say border radius of 10 pixels. Something like that. That's how you start working. So you can see it's now becoming a little bit nicer. So again, the whole point is whenever we are working with attribute selectors, we can use attributes like type, like value, like name. And when it comes to evaluating the value, it could be containing, it could be equal to, it could be ends with, it could be you can use the pipe symbol as we have mentioned, so that now we're checking if it contains the values with a hyphen and so forth. So you can really play around with that so that you're able to see exactly how this works out. Okay, that is attribute selectors. Any question up to that point? Any question up to that point? Okay, I'm not seeing anything on the chat. Okay, there's something on the chat. Okay, so there's nothing new on the chat. That's fine. So, yeah, since there's no question, I think let's move on to something else. I think that should be enough with selectors. Now, with selectors that we learned yesterday and the ones that we have learned today, you can see that now we are capable of really picking anything we'd like to have as far as our document or our DOM is concerned. We can really go at any level to pick the specific components that you want. Then now we want to focus on what styles we can be able to apply to these particular components. All right. So let's look at CSS colors. Colors are very, very important in CSS. As you have seen, most of the time I have been experimenting with colors. So let's see how to work with colors as far as CSS is concerned. So I'll simply say colors .html. I'll stop this, discard it, then I will run color again. I will initiate emit, and I'll call this CSS colors. Right? Now, color is a very important aspect in CSS, and when it comes to color, we can have colors in different ways. So, how you use colors is you can use names of the color. So, something like red, blue, gray, tangerine, you know, and any sky blue and any sort of color that you know. I mean, all of them are the names are acceptable. So you can use color names, but of course, color names are not very precise. So you might be forced to use something called RGB. RGB is a function that allows you to apply red, green, and blue combinations. These are primary colors. Then with the combination of red, green, and blue, then the system or your browser is able to render a particular color accurately. So for example, if I wanted white, I would simply say RGB white is 255, 255, 255. That is white. Okay. So when I say RGB 255, 255, 255, it means I'm talking about white. If I say RGB 0, 0, it means I'm talking about black. So this is white, this is black, and you can get any color in between there. So you can use RGB. Then there's a variant of RGB called RGBA. This is red, green, blue with alpha. So red, green, blue, then the alpha channel. The alpha is the opacity. So how much dark do you want it to be? By default, opacity is 1, which means it is 100%. But I can make it transparent. I might want to make it transparent, maybe add a tint of 50%, 30%, 20%, and any other variation that might that might be coming about as a result. So the means the alpha channel. So red, green, blue, alpha channel or opacity. We're going to look at examples of that in a while. Then you also have the hex, which is my favorite. This is the hexadecimal equivalent hexadecimal color code. So usually it comes in two pairs. That is hash, starts with a hash. Then if you want black, it's 000000. So the first two zeros represent 0, which is black, red, green, and the blue. So that's how you work it out. Now you can also write this one. Since the colors are the same, I can simply put triple zero. It means that if I put triple zero, it means that these are two the three numbers are pairs, right? So that's black. If I want to put white, it could be FF, FF, FF. That's white. 15, 15, 15. Or I can put white as hash FFF. That also means white. Okay, so hexadecimal is what I like. This is what I like. But again, since we're learning how to use CSS, everybody has their favorite that they can be able to use. Then you also have HSL, or what we call hue, saturation, and lighting. Now, this is also used for checking the color. Now, I am not very familiar with HSL. I don't use it often, but it is a function that is there that you can provide the hue in terms of number, the saturation in terms of number, and the lighting in terms of number. Then you also have HSLA, which is HSL with alpha channel. So hue, saturation, and lighting with alpha channel at the end. So it means that now you're going to provide hue, saturation, and lightness. It's lightness, not lighting, but lightness. Light is hue, saturation, and lightness, not lighting. Sorry about that. Yeah, like that. So the HSLA is hue, saturation, lightness. Then you can have an outer channel or a tint similar to what we were using as RGBA is concerned. Now, when you're doing things like uh, 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 what do we call this? What am I forgetting? Whenever you mix two colors and you gradient, when you're doing things like gradient, then you're going to see how these come into play. So again, we will focus on them much later. But when it comes to colors, this is how we are going to use the color. So now I'm just going to draw some boxes on the screen. Then I'm going to show us how to use the different colors as far as background is concerned. So yeah, so that we just explain. I know we have used colors, but I just want us to reinforce our learning based on how these colors work out. So what I'm going to do here, I want to create a div. I want to create a div. Actually, I want to create four of them. So those are going to be four divs. Then I'm going to give this one a class of 100. Then a class of 75. Then this one will be a class of 50. Sorry. This one will be a class of 25. Then I'll have a class of 0. So you can put div. When you put a dot, then you put 0. It will just put the class for you like that. Actually, that's how we are going to be moving forward as we're typing this course. It's called emmet, and I'm going to show you how to use emmet to automatically fill in the code for you rather than you having to type in the whole thing. Now, what I want to achieve here is anything that is a div, I want to give it a border. So I'll come here and I'll put my style, and I'll say anything that's a div, give it a border. Don't worry, we're going to discuss borders later. 1 pixel solid. Then I'll say the color is green. All right. Refresh this. Um, that should be border. Now it doesn't contain anything, so I have to more like provide content on them, or I can give them a height. Giving them a height of maybe say 50 pixels. Then what I want to do is on the body, because I want them to be next to each other, I want to display them as flex. Then flex, I can give them a width of 50 pixels. That's the square like that. Then I can give them a margin on the right of 10 pixels so that they just separate from each other like that. So I have 5 different boxes as you can see over there. So I want to color these boxes based on the things that we have learned over here so that we see how this thing works out. So let me say the box that has, I'll use the class name. So I'll say anything that is .100. Now this is a very bad idea because a CSS class name must start with a letter. So I'll put color 100, color 75, color 50, color 25, and color 0 like that. So I'll say anything that is color 100 and it's a class, so I'll put a dot before it like that. Anything that is color 100, I'll put a background of green. So let's see how that works out. The first one will be green, right? Now, I can also take green, so I can come here and say green hex code. What is the hexa code for green? This is the hexadecimal code for green, and this is what I like using. So when I come here, when it is, so I can do that, or I can come and say background is also that. It's a light shade of green, as you can see, but you get the idea, right? So we can have that green that way. Now, since we are at this green, let me get the RGBA for it. So the RGBA for green is this. Red is 0, green is 255, and the blue is 0. So you can see how that works out, and that's why it's easier to work with. So instead of, so this one is using name, this one is using the hex. Now let's use RGB. So I can simply say here background will be RGB. Then I open bracket. I'll say red is 0, green is 255, and blue is 0. So when I come back to my code, you can see that is actually what green represents. Okay. Now, that is a nice green. Let's now use RGBA to change the opacity. This is 100. This should be 75, 50, 25. Okay, I have more than one. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one is 100. The next one will be 75. So I'll simply say dot 75. Actually, it is dot C75. I want the background to be RGBA. R is 0, 255, 0. Then I'll put 0.75. The opacity is 75%. That means the green is going to be 75%. Is it? Yeah, that should be. Is that 75%? That doesn't look like 75%. That looks like 100 to me. Unless, of course, well, let me just reduce it further so I see. Um, because it starts from 0 to 1. Let's do dot 50. C dot 50. C75. Okay. So this other one, I want the background to be 50. So now you can see it is becoming lighter. Then 25, I want it to be dot 25. So even lighter. Then of course when it is 0, it becomes, well, I mean, why do I have multiple divs? I want 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, probably I did not organize myself well. So if I put C0, then I'll put the opacity here of 0, which means it will be 100% light. So you can see, I don't know why I have an extra sixth one over here. I don't know where the sixth one is coming from. Yeah, but you can see when I'm talking about RGBA, I'm going light as I move along. So I could use either the color name, I can use the hex color, or I can use the RGB function to provide the red, green, blue color equivalent, and or I can use RGBA whenever I want to provide opacity for that particular color. I think that is clear when it comes to colors. Then we might want to be able to provide that. Now, alternatively, some people might want to just not use RGBA, like I've used it like this. So let me just mask it out. As I have said, since I like using hexadecimal, personally, I like using hexadecimal and I don't do these kind of things. Of course, if you're using gradient, then you have to use RGBA. But if you're going to be using hex like this, the only thing you might want to provide that is the hex for the blue. Actually, anything that is a div, because all of them are going to have a green color, I can simply give the background color like that. So all of them are going to have that color because we want that green. The only thing that's going to be different is going to be the opacity. The opacity of this is going to be 1, which is 100%. The opacity of this is going to be 0.75. So it becomes lighter. The opacity of this 0.5. You can put zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.5. You can see it becomes lighter. The opacity of this is 0.25. And the opacity of the other one is 0. So you can see with that one now, it has disappeared. You see, if I put opacity, it applies on even the border itself, which is really what I like. So instead of 0, let me make it 10. That is very, very light at the end. Not 10, but 0.1. Yeah, so it is very fairly light as we move along. So you can see again, I can still be able to provide opacity just to show how transparent or dark I would want it to be. Okay, so this is very important for us. So at the end of the day, it's important for us to be able to understand how to work with colors as far as CSS is concerned, right? Good. So that is how we work with colors. Now, I want us to go back and now try to understand how we work with backgrounds. Backgrounds are very important. I know we've been dealing with background color over here. That is just one part of it. Background is also another very important CSS property that we want to apply. And all these things apply to almost any content or actually almost any content you have within your page. So any content you have within your page, these things are going to play a very vital role in terms of formatting them. So now let's look at backgrounds. Unless of course there is a question, then you can ask the question. So if you don't have a question, then you can be able to move forward to the next thing, which is now backgrounds. So backgrounds. So I'll click this and I'll say um, background, background, the CSS.html. So I'll collapse that. I'll initiate emit and I'll say CSS backgrounds. Backgrounds. Right. So of course I'll stop this. Then I will initiate it again. So we have an empty page over here. Now, since we want to do backgrounds, I'll want to do background of this page. And again, as I said, backgrounds apply to the entire any component that you want to have on your page. But for now, I'm going to focus on the background for the body. Now, the background is a very interesting thing because it comes with different things. There is background color, there is background image, there is background repeat, there is background position, and probably maybe background attachment. How you want it to move with the contents on the page or stuff like that, right? So when it comes to the background, it's actually very important for us to be able to understand how it works out. So we're going to look at the details. Then after that, we will look at the specific shorthand of how we can be able to write the background as a shorthand so that we don't have to identify or to identify all the properties individually. But let's work with them one by one. So let me say I want to go to a website called Unsplash. I want to get an image from Unsplash. These are images that you can get for free. So I can come here and I say graduates. Let me say I want an icon that is royalty free. Royalty free should be a filter. Let me just see. Filters, filters, filters. We should have filters for free. Okay, let me first of all search. Then under license here, I'll say free. Then I want something like I think I'll have this. Then I'll download it. It's going to be a very high quality image, so I'll open it. I'll rename it as graduate. Then I'll copy it and paste it. I will copy it. Actually, I'll just cut it and paste it inside Visual Programming here, inside our images. Sorry about that. So I'll have it here. This is a very high quality image. As you can see, the resolution is going to be extremely high. The resolution is extremely high. It's a very high quality image. These are the kind of images we use on websites. So I have that. Perfect. So now I want to go back to my code. So I want to return this one to the left. Actually, I want it to be on the right. Yeah, I think that it's okay back there. So I'll close this. So we're here. So if I wanted to apply a dark background to my page, so I'll come here and I'll remember this one should be from a different document. It's only that I'm adding it here for purposes of integrating it. But the whole point was I was supposed to to create a file called style.css. Then I import it here using the link the link tag. So the relationship should be style sheet. Then the hyperlink reference would point to the CSS file. That is professionally how we should do it. But for purposes of explanation, as far as this class is concerned, then we just need to put it on the header so that our code is also a bit concise and you can be able to read it from one particular place. That's the reason why I am doing this. Right. So here for the style, I can say I want the background. So of course I have to pick something to style. So I'll pick the body. So on the body of the document, so it means inside here, I want the background color to be navy blue. I don't know if it accepts that as a color. No, it does not accept navy blue as a color, but navy I think is accepted. So you can see now the background of the page has become navy, right? And that's why sometimes I like using hex. So I'll say navy blue hexadecimal code. For some strange reason, I don't know why my computer keeps on disconnected sometimes, but well, it's not allowing me to do that. But you can see I have that dark background, which is good. Now, this one doesn't do much because once you apply the color, not so much would probably change. The color is just enough, right? But now when you're working with images, if I wanted to put a background image over here, I'll simply come and say background image. Then I'll provide the URL with the image. I'll simply say go into a folder called images, then get me graduate.jpg. Now that, as you can see, will put the image on the background. Is my image is big. Let me use a smaller image so that you understand what I'm talking about, some of these properties. Let me say something like management team. So if I do that, you will see that this image has repeated several times on the page because it is small, right? So in as much as it is an image, because it is small, it has been repeated several times on the page. That is maybe not the the best thing we'd want. We wouldn't want the background to repeat itself. So then we'd probably start changing a few things here and there. So for example, I can use something like background repeat. So you can repeat is by default both. So you can specify how you want the repeat to be done. Do you want the repeat to be X only? X means it's going to repeat on the X axis. So from left to right only. If I say repeat Y, it's going to repeat from top to bottom only. If I say none, repeat none, or no repeat, then it will only put that image once. Okay? So once it puts it once, then now you can now be able to start playing around with it. You can decide to use it to fill the page. You can put the background position and so forth and so forth. So for now, I'm only going to focus on the background position. So I want to put it on the extreme left. So background position, background position. Then the position has two properties. I can simply say um, something like if I wanted to put it at the uh, right, then at the top, which means at this corner over here, that is right top. So I'll simply say right, then top. So you can see it's on the extreme right, then it has moved on the top. If I say right bottom, then it will put it at the bottom of the page on the right. So you can see now, again, depending on the image is not good enough. So I can simply say this is bottom right. Okay, doesn't change the size of the image is too small, but you get the idea. If I say I want it on the right and I want it at the top, then that should be able to work well if I want on that extreme side. So depending on the image, you can play around with it however you want. Then you have the background size. This is also very important. And this size could be outer, which means the same size, contain, which means it's going to try and stretch it so that it is able to fill in the page. But what's important is the cover. Cover will try to make it fill the entire screen by stretching it without making it lose resolution as such. So as you can see, this one is really trying to see how it can fill the page without really altering the image. Now that is and how we use images. So I wanted to use a lower resolution image so that at least you understand how to work with that. But now let's put the actual image that we wanted to use, which is um, graduate. So you see, if I put graduate and I put contain, because it's a very high resolution image, um, contain, yeah, that should be the spelling. I don't know, it's not why it's not okay. Let's just use cover. So as I scroll through the page, you can be able to see this image tries to fill my page. Even if I open this page in full resolution, you can see the image will cover this page. As I have more and more content on the page, I'll be able to scroll this image as I move along. Okay, so that's how you work with. That's how you work with background images. So we have background color, which is basically just the color. Then now we have the background image. Now the other thing that we need to have is something called background attachment. It's important. I was forgetting about it. Background attachment, it's here. Background attachment is either fixed or scroll. So fixed means it's going to remain wherever it is. So if I put it fixed, it means that if I have a lot of content on the page, the image is not going to move with the content. But if I say scroll, it means that whenever I have a lot of content on the page and I scroll from top to bottom, the image is going to scroll with the content as I move along. So this background attachment is also a very important feature to have when it comes to scrolling images based on content. Again, you can have the opacity of the image here. Mm, you can have the opacity. Actually, it's blend. So you can do a lot of transparency as far as the image is concerned. I know this image is going to be a little bit crazy, but you can also make this image a little bit transparent. You can add things to it. Just provide things that make it a little bit easier on the eye, so that it appears more on the background, lighter than it is actually on the front. So that is how you work with these images. And again, as I've said, it will depend on whether you want to put them on the body, you want to put them behind a specific box, and so forth and so forth. It will depend on really where you want to apply your background. So each element in CSS is treated as a box. We're going to discuss the box model. So that box, you can be able to format it where you feel like. So that's how you work with backgrounds. So now I want us to discuss how to work with borders. How to work with borders. Now, borders are, well, I'll remove this background because sometimes it's a bit crazy. When you're working with backgrounds, you might not be able to see a few things here and there. But I want us to work with borders. And as I've said, as I've mentioned, everything in CSS is treated as a box. Either it's a square or it's a rectangle, but everything is literally a box in CSS. And boxes have borders, as you've seen. So, for example, when I was creating divs, and I created four of them, so I can come to the body here, and I'll say display of the body is flex. So it means these things are going to appear from left to right. So what I can do here is to say something like this one. I'll give it a class of solid. So I'll give it a class of dashed. This other one I can give it a class of dashed. This one I can give it the other class of maybe dotted, class of give the class of dotted. And then I think this one I can give it a class of maybe say double, to have two lines, class of double, double, sorry. Okay, so now I have these divs. I need to give them a height of 50 pixels and width of 50 pixels. Now you're not seeing anything on them because they don't have any content. So let me just give them a background of teal. I like using background instead of background color because when it comes to background, I can provide either color or image. So using background gives me the flexibility of determining how what I want to add. Is it going to be an image or is it going to be a color? That's why I prefer using background rather than background color or background image. But still, either should be able to work out depending on how you want to play around with it. So let me give it a background color of teal. Teal is that color. Then of course we're going to give margin right of 10 pixels so that they just separate from each other like that. So you're able to see each individual box. Okay, now I just want us to see the individual boxes so that now we are able to, well, I can give the opacity of say 50%. It's allowed. Yeah, that's allowed. Maybe 75. Yeah, something like that. It's a bit not so hard on the eyes. So again, on the body, the opacity, the transparency on the body is that actually the opacity should be on each and every element. Yeah, not on the body because it means that everything is going to have a transparency of 25% on the entire page, which is not a very good idea. Now, let's deal with these borders. Now, we have borders, and borders have, first of all, what we call styles. So we have different styles for borders, and these styles include solid, which is the default. So solid is continuous line. So let me put the solid one. So I'll say get me something with the class of solid, and then I'll simply say here border style is solid. Okay. So well, let me change the color of the border. Border color is red, so that you're able to see the border color, right? So solid should have. So you can see now that one has a border of red, which is solid. Okay. So that's one of the styles. So then you also have dashed. So if this something is going to be dashed. So again, for all the divs, because we want the border color to be red, so we just see the difference, we'll put the style on the div itself. So by default, all of them have a border color of red. The only thing is that the style of the border is what you have not shown. So the ones that don't have style will just have a border of red, but the styles are not going to appear. But once we apply the style, then you're going to see how that works out. So we have border style here of dashed. So dashed will be something like that. As you can see, it appears as dashed. Okay. Then you also have dotted. So I'll say dotted. Then I'll say border style of dotted. So there is dashed and there's dotted. Dotted are going to be circular. Dashed. This is dotted. Oh, sorry. Also put an extra. Okay. So you can see dashed is there are dashes that are rectangular in shape. Dotted are circular in shape. That's the only difference between the two of them. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it from here. It's not visible, but that is the difference between the two of them. Okay, so probably maybe I'll give these ones 100 by 100 by 100. Yeah, so this is dashed, this is dotted. Then you can come and put now double. If you want double, it means it's going to have double square, double solid lines. So border style is double like that. So you can see now that has double lines surrounding it. I don't know how this thing is putting an extra div. I have absolutely no idea because I'm not seeing any other div over there. But you get the idea. When it comes to applying borders, those are the styles that are there. Now, the other thing that is there is the width of the border. So we also have the border width. So like for the solid, I have the border width. How thick do you want the border to be? And the border width can be measured in pixels. So maybe I can say I want it 2 pixels, which means I want it thicker than whatever you're seeing at the moment. So if I put 2 pixels, did you refresh? 2 pixels small. Let me say I want 20 pixels. So you can see now the border is 20 pixels bigger. So I can decide the width that I want for that particular border. And of course, we have provided the border color. As you can see over here, we have put the border color to be red. We can put border color to be anything. Then you might also want to have rounded corners. So as you're applying the border color, I might want to also have rounded corners. So probably maybe I can say for this solar one, I can say the radius of the border is 10 pixels. So I don't want these sharp edges at the corner. I want them to be a little bit less sharp. So you can see now the corners are a little bit rounded as I apply border radius. So those are the properties that you can be able to apply as far as borders are concerned. Now, that is the long way of doing it. That's the long way of doing it. Let me show you a shorter way of doing it. So when you want to apply border, you can apply all the properties at once. So, for example, I can say I want to apply a border that is purple in color. So let me just say I want another div here that has a style of other, right? So this div with a style of other, I'll put some text inside it, and I'll simply say here paragraph other text test, something like that, right? So that is this one over here. Now, if I wanted to apply a specific borders to it, I'll come here and I'll say other test. Is it other test or other? It's just other. For this other div, I want the border. So instead of saying border size, border color, border radius, and all, no, okay, border radius is probably different, but something like style, width, color, and so forth and so forth can all be put in one thing. So I'll simply say border. I'll say 1 pixel is the width. I'll put the style is solid. Then I'll put the color as gray. Something of that. So you see, if I do that, well, maybe let me make it bigger, something like 10 pixels so that you can be able to see it. So if I do something like that, you can see now for that particular text, I have put a border, a border that is solid, or I can put here dashed so that it appears nicely. So you can see the border is dashed, it's gray in color, and it is 10 pixels big. So this is also another shorthand that you can be able to use to provide all the properties. So there is the width, there is the style, and there is the color. So you can put all of them together rather than writing them separately. So the only probably thing you must do is just to say the border radius if you wanted to change the border radius. Okay, are we okay up to that particular point? I think that is excellent. If there's any question you can ask before we move into something else, I'll switch back to the um, uh, chat to see if there's any questions. There are absolutely none, so I think we are in a good position, right? So let's discuss something else. Let's discuss something called margins. And before we discuss margins, let's discuss something called the CSS box model, or rather, um, yeah, let's discuss the CSS. Well, let's discuss margins and paddings, then we can discuss the box model because even borders affect the box model. So because I started the borders before discussing the box model, let me just look at the margins and the paddings. Then now we can look at the box model. So again, I'm going to come here. I'll create a file and I'll call it um, actually, margins and paddings, I'll probably use just one file. So I'll say margins and paddings, margins and paddings, margins and paddings dot html like that. So um, I'll stop this. Then I will start it again. So I'll integrate. I'll initiate emmet. So I'll say margins and paddings. Now, um, I'll still use boxes with text, but I'm able to explain the difference between the two. So I'll create divs, two divs like that. Then I'll simply say class. This one is red, and this one is blue. Sorry, blue inside. So then here I'll put my style, and I'll put the one that's red as a background of red, and the one that's blue as a background of blue. Okay, so refresh that. They don't have content within them. So I'll just put here. This is red, content, then this is blue content, then this is blue content. Uh, they should work. Oh, I missed that. Yeah, I was wondering why it's not working. Yeah, I have something like that, right? So let me just change my body to have color of white, which means all the text should be white. And white, I said, is triple F. That's how I like writing it. If you look at most code, that's how I'll write it, triple F or FFF. Six Fs will be able to give you white. So something of the sort. Now, when we are discussing issues, let's start with the issues of padding. Padding will increase the height of the content that you are holding. So as you can see, at the moment I don't have any padding for all the content. When I provide padding, it means that it's going to increase the size of the content, right? That's going to increase the size of the content. So let's do that. So if on the red one, let's say I want to put a padding of 10 pixels, you'll be able to see that that box becomes bigger. So as you can see, the box has become bigger than the blue one because what it has done is it has left some spaces at the top 10 pixels, 10 pixels on the right, 10 pixels on the bottom, and 10 pixels on the left. So it is creating space within the content, and that means that the box is becoming bigger. All right. So that's kind of like how padding works. It pushes the content inside the box, right? Remember we said in CSS everything is a box. So when you say padding of 5 pixels or 10 pixels, it means that push everything from the edge of the box in all the corners. Now, when you are doing the padding, if you just provide one value, it's going to provide the same padding from top, left, bottom, and right. So all of them are going to be the same. Now, if I wanted to change paddings for, if I provided three values, that one I provided one value. If I provided two values, something like padding, then I provide two values like this. I'll simply say 10 pixels and 5 pixels. What will happen? What it will do, the 10 pixels is going to be top and bottom, then the 5 pixels is going to be right and left. So that will be, let me put a comment here. Uh, 10 pixels top and bottom, then 5 pixels right and left. So if you provide three values, that's two values rather, that's what it's going to do. You provide one value, it's going to provide same padding in all the four corners. If you provide two values, the first one will be top and bottom, the second one will be right and left. What will happen if you provide three? What will happen if you provide three? Is it possible to provide three? Yes, so it's possible to provide three. So I'll mask that out. Then let's say if you provide three, so if you say padding is 10 pixels, 5 pixels, and 20 pixels, 5 pixels rather, and 20 pixels, what we need to do? Now, this one, what it will do is that it will take 10 pixels at the top, 5 pixels right and left, then 20 pixels bottom. So you can see the bottom is bigger than the top. So when I put three values, top, because it starts at the top and it goes clockwise, top, then right and left, then bottom. So if you provide three values, that is how it's going to work out. So that will be top, right and left. Top is going to be 10 pixels, right and left would be, top will be yeah, will be 5 pixels, then bottom will be 20 pixels. Again, when we are styling our things, we do this because it depends on how much gap we want to leave between the item or the element at the top and the element at the bottom, depending on what styling element we want to try and achieve. Now, what will happen if you provide four values? If you provided four values, then it will take each and every side. So if you provide four values like this, padding, and then you say 10 pixels, 20 pixels, 20 pixels, then 10 pixels, it will just do that. 10 will be the top, 20 right, 20 bottom, 10 left. So it's going to go clockwise. So here, 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 then here. That's why it stops. So it goes from the top clockwise. So it's just going to take this one at the top, this one at the right, this one at the bottom, and this one at the left. And you can see that works out nicely. Okay? Perfect. But again, you can also do padding by sides. So instead of doing that, if I wanted to change only one side, because sometimes I might not want to change all the sides, I might only want to change the padding at the top, I'll simply say something like padding at the top, then I'll give it 10 pixels. So you'll see that only the padding at the top has been provided. Left, right, and bottom have been left intact. If I wanted the padding on the right, be the only one that changes, then you see it's only going to provide the padding on the right, which is this side. You can't see it because right is from this other side. Let's put left because that's where we have the text. So if I put padding left, you'll see that it has only provided the padding on the left. Let me make it bigger so that it's conspicuous, something like 20. So you can see it has only provided the padding on the left. So you can say padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom if you want to change the individual sides. You can say padding if you want to change all the sides. And you can say padding and then you can provide either one value for all the sides equal, two values for top and bottom equal, left and right equal, three values and for all these parameters, and then we can move on and on. So that is how padding applies. Again, as you can see, padding increases the size of your box. It increases the size of your box. All right, perfect. Now let's look at margins. Let's look at margins. Now, margins work similar to how paddings work. The only difference between margins and paddings is that margins are outside the border. Padding is inside the border. So what happens is we have our content, then we have our padding, then we have our border. So for example, if I put a border here of 5 pixels solid, maybe say red, no, not red, but blue, green, something of the sort. So you can see that the padding is actually inside the border, right? The padding is inside the border, but the margin is actually outside the border. So if I was to put a margin, and by the way, it works similar to padding, the only difference is how the margin works. So if I put a margin here of say 10 pixels, you will see I have to put a semicolon here. If I do that, then you're going to see that the margin is actually outside the border. You can see now this thing has been pushed inside. Now what it does is that it has left a margin. Margins are usually just are used to separate content or components. So with margins, they may not change the size of your box model because when they overlap, then it takes the exact value. But they help us in separating content, so to speak. And similar to padding, margins will also allow you to be able to apply them differently. So if you put 10, it means that it's going to apply 10 across the board. So if I put 20, if I put two values like 20 pixels, then 10 pixels, it means that top and bottom will be 20 pixels, then left and right will be 10 pixels. So you can see this one is bigger than the one on either side. So you can see the item is squashed. So when we are talking about margins and paddings, that is the difference between the two. They work almost similar. The difference is the placement. Margins are used to separate contents within the page. Rather, padding is used to push or increase the size of the box model so that now it covers more. And now that also now brings us to the box model, which is what I wanted us to discuss what it is. Now, for us to be able to understand the box model appropriately, I don't know if I have an image here. I don't have an image here, but if you right click here and you go to inspect, then you come to styles, then you come to computed. You will see the box model here, and this is very, very important. This is actually the box model. So the box model will tell you what content you have within your page. So you can see the content I have is actually, if I'm talking about this red whatever, that is the content that I have, right? Then that content has padding. So padding is the space that I'm leaving surrounding the component, so that now we are able to, push the content inside so that it's readable and stuff like that. We want to push it from the borders. Then you have the border, which is now the surrounding that you've provided for the content. Then after the border, we have the margin. So usually when you want to calculate the entire size of your component, it will include the border and the padding. The border and the padding will increase the size of your component. Let me give you a classic example. Let's say this for this red div, I want the height to be 100 pixels, right? And I also want the width to be 200 pixels, right? So I'm expecting that the height and width to be 200 pixels. Now look at what happens over here. If I look at this box model, the height the height is actually 176 pixels. Why is the height 176 pixels? Because I have a border of 5 pixels all round. So 5 pixels all round, that means that I have 20. I have added 20 on top of 100. That makes it 120. Then I have another padding of 60. So 60 on the left, 60 on the left plus 120 is 140. Then I think, where is the other six coming from? There should be another where the other six coming from. I'm not seeing that, but most probably I have another six that is missing. So if you look at the height, then it becomes somewhere close to 176, as opposed to the 100 that I'd mentioned. When it comes to the width, you can see the width is 339, even though I mentioned 200, simply because I have no, oh sorry, I have margin at the not margin but padding on the left is 20. Then I have a border of 5 pixels all around. So it's adding all these things together. So now you see the height is somewhat different. Now, if I wanted the height to here to maintain at 100 by 200, then I'll come here and I'll say the box sizing, and this is what is showing all the time is border box. Now, if I do that, then I refresh, automatically what the system will do is that it will take this entire box and add all the margins and the paddings together, so that now the values that I have provided are 100% covering the height of what I need. This is going to be standard process. So what I'll do here is I'll actually cut this, then I'll give it as a global style, or I can put it here so that it applies effectively. Yes. So I'll put it there. So when I do that, then it will just do its own calculations effectively, and nothing is going to change as far as the height of the component is concerned. But then again, as a good practice, this one we usually put it as a global or as a universal selector. So we put it here, then we put star. So as a universal selector, it means that it's going to resize everything else, and everything should be able to fall right into place. Okay, so that is how paddings, margins, and the CSS box model work. Remember, we have said the good thing with margin is that even if I put margin on this other component, it will overlap and cancel out. It will basically just pick the highest margin between the two of them. Let me just demonstrate that. So for the blue content, let me give padding of 10 pixels all around, something like that. Then I'll give it a margin. Let me give a margin of 20 pixels all around for these components. So you can see, um, so this one also has a margin of 20 pixels all around. So I'll put semicolon here. So if I do that, you're going to see there is a margin of 20 pixels here, then there's a margin of 20 pixels here. But somebody would assume if you put a margin of 20 pixels here, so this one will have 20 pixels top, 20 pixels bottom, and another the blue one also has a margin of 20 pixels. So I was expecting that because here and here is 20, it should have added the other 20 so that the margin between these two is 40. So you can see it is not, because since I already apply a margin of 20 and this other margin is also 20, it means that they are the same. That is the margin at the bottom. But if I made the bottom one have a margin of say 40, then you're going to see that the gap is going to actually increase. So the gap, you can see now it has been pushed inside and the gap here is okay. Now if I go to the top one and I put now something like 30, I'm not going to see any change because, oh yeah, I'll say change because I've put the margin at the top has changed, but the margin between here has not changed because the highest one is 40, so it will just override the 30. So it will take first of all the 30, then because this other one says it's 40, it will just take 30 and 40. What's the difference? 10. Then you just apply 10, and that's how it works out. So in a nutshell, when it comes to working with the margins and paddings, you need to understand how the box model works. So inside the box model, we have the content, then the padding, then the border, then now the margin. As you can see, the margin is dotted. It means it does not really alter the size of the content. It simply just tries to separate the contents between themselves so that now there's some sort of spacing when it comes to formatting your context or your contents. Okay. So I think I'll take a break at that because I'm seeing we only have about 8 minutes left. I can give us an opportunity for any questions or comments. Then from there, I think we can call it a day. We will meet tomorrow, I think probably from 1 p.m. If there's any question or comment you can't be able to ask, then I'll be able to respond. After that, we can take a break. Then we meet tomorrow from 1 p.m. Okay. Advise others that it's important to come to class. I can record the videos. It will take you quite a bit of an effort to go through like 10 videos all at once because you want to get everything all in one go. It does not usually work like that most of the time. So I encourage you to come to class. The videos are supposed to be supplemental, so it means they're supposed to help you, consolidate whatever we have learned in class, but they're not supposed to be used as substitute for not attending classes. And then again, I am using TLD to be able to take attendance. So again, attending classes is 75%. So if you don't attend 75% of the classes, I have a right to deny you access to do exams because you have not met the course requirement. So encourage the others to make sure that they show up in class as appropriate, even though I am recording these classes for purposes of future reference where you might want to be able to review other things that you're discussing. All right. So since I'm seeing that there's nothing on the chat, I think I'll take a break at that. Then we'll move again tomorrow at 1 p.m. so that I can carry on with now how we can format texts and fonts and other things like gradients and animations and stuff like that. So I want to use tomorrow to finalize on CSS exclusively. Then come next week, we start exploring JavaScript. Okay, so if there is no question, which I have not seen any, I think let's take a break at that and meet again tomorrow. Thank you and have a blessed day.